So today, let's make sure we get this updated. Modern. Get that taken care of. So today, pretty close to wrap up for our linear aggression series. The deck we are playing is Affinity, or Robots, however Wizards wants to call it. It's a pretty standard Affinity list. Got your 17 lands, your Inkmoth and Blinkmoth Nexus, your Darksteel Citadel, which synergizes with the rest of your thing, your Spire of Industry, which is kind of taking over the place of Glimmer Void. Glimmer Void doesn't deal you damage to play for colored mana, however, if you lose all your artifacts, it goes bye-bye at the end of turn. It's a drawback that I suffered in from last league, so I've just decided to go with the 4 Spire of Industry. Beyond that, you've got your 0 mana artifacts and enablers, Memnite and Ornithopter, as well as Welding Jar to help turn on your Mox Opal, which is the busted piece of tech, the reason why this deck does as well as it does. Oftentimes on turn 2 you can easily have access to 2, sometimes even 3 mana if you also include a Springleaf Drum in the mix. Springleaf Drum taps an untapped creature you control, doesn't necessarily have to be unsummoning sick. You can use a creature you just played this turn to use Springleaf Drum. So in effect you have 17 lands, 4 Mox Opal, 4 Springleaf Drum. It's quite a bit of mana. Allows for some explosive draws, but also some dead late game draws sometimes. Beyond that, you have Signal Pest and Bolt Scourge as your basic 1-drops. Bolt Scourge, yeah, it's 2 mana, but a lot of times you're just playing it for 1 and a Phyrexian mana. It's a 1/1 lifelinker. Signal Pest has pseudo flying. Helps to pump up your other mopey creatures, but those are all kind of your enablers. Your payoffs, Arcbound Ravager is a 1/1 for 2. Comes into play with a 1/1 counter. You can sacrifice other artifacts. Helps you do blank removal. If your opponent taps out, sometimes you can just kill them out of nowhere with Ravager, either on a flyer or an Inkmoth Nexus. Cranial Plating is the heaviest hitting thing, the thing that enables the most nut draws. Basically, it gets +1/+0 for each artifact in play you control. And then for black, you can equip it at instant speed, so if you get multiple of your colored sources out, you can play a lot of combat tricks with this, like attack with a 0 mana creature through Ensnaring Bridge, equip Cranial Plating, hit them for a ton, and then Steel Overseer. It taps for, it's a 1/1 that taps to put counters on each artifact you control. So if you get this on turn 1 with like a Mox Opal or turn 2 on the play, a lot of times this card can run away with the game if they don't have an answer immediately. And then finally your 3-drops. Master of Ethereum is the lord of the group, as well as it gets +X/+X for the number of artifacts you control. So it's a big boy. It makes the rest of your creatures big boys. As champion, this card's mainly here as your only card that's really good at blocking, and it can also attack through a bunch of blockers. As long as you have Metalcraft, it's very difficult to remove, it's very difficult to block. It becomes your best blocker in the deck, outside of the Eldrazi matchups. And that's pretty much the main deck for Affinity. Affinity is arguably one of the best Game 1 decks in Modern. Trying to think of any deck that might have a better Game 1 right now. Maybe Storm. Beyond that, this is a deck that's been around for almost the entirety of the format. The reason why it ebbs and flows and it's just not consistently the best deck is a lot of decks are packing graveyard hate. If you've seen the rest of this series, almost every deck has some form of interaction for Affinity in the sideboard, be it Ancient Grudge, be it Harmonic Sliver, be it Vythian Renegades, be it Stony Silence, Shatterstorm. Pretty much every deck is playing like 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 hate cards for Affinity. in the sideboard, and if one of those hits the board, it's pretty much game over. I mean, you can win, but your chances of winning are so much lower. And Affinity does struggle a bit with faster combo decks like Storm. Ad Nauseam's a close-ish matchup, and then like removal-heavy decks like Jeskai and Jund can really be a problem. And the fact that Jeskai is on the uptick again, it seems, does not bode well for Affinity in a lot of situations. So, beyond that in the sideboard, you've got Grafdigger's Cage for decks like Dredge and Storm. Thoughtseize, Spell Pierce double as some of your interaction for your opponent's spell-based combo decks like Storm, like Affinity, not like Affinity, like Storm, Ad Nauseam, etc. Also doubles as this deck's version of Hate for Stony Silence. Dispatch is a good removal spell against things like Death Shadow, etc. Ancient Grudge for the Mirror and for Lantern Control. Bitter Blossom, good in the mirror, good against some of the grindier decks. They're trying to 1-for-1 all your crap down. A lot of times it's hard for them to answer a stream of 1/1s, just like it's hard for them to answer things like Lingering Souls. Rule of Law is pretty much solely in here for Storm. You could potentially bring it in against Jeskai, but I don't think that's a winning battle. Gear for Ether Grid is for the mirror, it's for smaller creature decks, and sometimes it's brought in as a secondary threat against decks that are likely to bring in Stony Silence. Gives your Dorkos a way to deal 2 or 3 damage a turn. And then as champion, much like the same reason it's in the main deck, it's there for the removal heavy matchups and matchups where you're going to be doing a lot of blocking other than the Eldrazi matchup. So, and then finally you've got Galv Blast, which is a 1 mana 4 damage spell most of the time in this deck. Use it to remove blockers, and it's your main source of reach, since you don't really have any haste creatures. And then you have your 8 creature lands, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, but, you know, one of the advantages of playing this particular deck is even some of your mana is a threat. As far as Affinity, I played it... the most I played Affinity was during Eldrazi Winter, which during that point in time, there wasn't a ton of interaction going on. So Affinity was one of the better decks, and then Blue-White Eldrazi was playing like 3 or 4 copies of Stony Silence. That was my main time I played Affinity. I've picked it up a few times since then, but still a very powerful deck, but a lot of times I just don't have good luck against either. Your Stormcast is out of date. Whatever that means. Guess I'd like to play first. So what does this hand do? We have land, Mox Opal. I think this is just too many payoffs and not enough. This hand isn't great either, but I think we keep it. Steel Overseer. I think we'll top Overseer, but it's not great here. Not exactly the best Affinity openings here. Opponent. Is this burn? It's either burn or zoo, so. Sure, I'll just take the damage. Well, for whatever reason, the F6 key is not working. Oh, it's just changed to 6. Weird. Alright, so play out Overseer. This is probably just going to die, but not being able to hit F6 is going to be quite annoying this league. This just mono red burn? Looks like it might be. So maybe taking that 4 wasn't correct. Alright, Memnite's an okay-ish draw here. So use this to activate and pass. It's possible I should have played Mox Opal here to keep up Galv Blast against their elementals. Swift Spear, sure. Vexing Devil. So what is the fastest route to victory here? Play out Springleaf Drum. Go ahead and Galv Blast. Alright. Let's play out Opal. Keep that one. Blow up that. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guess the fastest clock here is to go for Ink Moth kill and hope they don't have a doesn't seem like our opponent has a bolt, but this sets us up for the quickest kill next turn. This lack of an F6 button is going to get real annoying real quick. So our hand did our opponent keep? Alright. Bowl Lightning. Alright. I think we just take the ball shot. Oh, that was a horrible saying. I think we're just going to block Swift Spear here. Go to 4. Alright, Ink Moth was a decent draw. Fire up this Ink Moth. Equip. So our opponent has to have basically a bolt or a nope, they just have nothing. Alright. So we're up against mono red burn. So what cards are not good? What cards are decent? Probably a couple of these on the draw. Get a champion in. Master of Ethereum out. And then board in a couple Pierces, because they're likely bringing in whatever artifact they hate they have. So it's important to have blockers that can just absorb damage. In Master, sure, Master is huge, but something like Smash to Smithereens or Shatter Spree or any of those cards don't care about the size of Master of Ethereum. I'm trying to think. Thoughtseize, no. Ancient Grudge, no. Rule of Law, no. Ether Grid, eh. I mean, Blood Moon's somewhat effective against us, but at the same time, if they're wasting a card slot on Blood Moon, I think I'm perfectly happy with that exchange. What's this hand do? Hand seems alright. It's not fantastic. We've got a little too much mana. But if we draw any of our other payoffs, we can pretty quickly play them. So, GG, Goblin God. Just appears that there's some type of mono red burn list. Memnite. Memnite's alright. Alright, so play out Darksteel. Play out that. Play out that. Play out that. Alright, this one, I think we're just going to take the 4. Galvanic Blast is not a horrible draw here. Alright, so play out Ravager. Big problem we have here is we don't have any actual like fast clock payoffs, so like we don't have an Ink Moth Nexus, we don't have a cranial plating, so our opponent's going to get a little bit too much time for my liking. Like if we were to find a Vault Scourge or something along those lines, I think I'd be a lot happier with where we're sitting. Alright, so our opponent's trying to... So... I could go all in on this Ravager, but what would I willingly sacrifice? I think we just let this happen, unfortunately. Gonna put it on the Ornithopter here. It's possible I should have just gone all in at this point. Blood Moon? Alright, sure. Alright, Cranial Plating's not a horrible draw here. Like I said, So, our opponent's mono red by choice. Blood Moon is not a cheap card on Magic Online, so find that highly entertaining. Sure. That's why I didn't really want to go in on Ravager. Opponent reveals Etched Champion. Alright, well. Go ahead and take care of this Goblin Guide. Our clock's still pretty slow. Alright, there's a champion. So our opponent could easily have burn spells here. Could be slow rolling like a ball lightning, hoping we'll attack or something. I mean, we're not gonna win sitting back doing nothing, so. The Blood Moon hasn't been amazing, but it is slowing our clock down by at least one a turn right now, so could be relevant. Alright, there's a Swift Spear, sure. Question is, are you attacking here? Apparently they don't have a spell in hand, so guessing their card in hand is probably just some type of... It's either some type of like spike. No, it's not a spike effect. I think they would have cast a spike effect to try to force a trade there. And that said, there's still a lot of things that kill us this turn. See if you have any effects at the end of turn. You do not. Alright, looks like a concession from the stopped clock. Like, I'm not really sure why they brought in Blood Moon there. See if we can do input settings. Do. There we go. Not sure what Magic Online did that changed that, but hopefully that'll have it fixed for foreseeable future. Very annoying trying to play matches without access to the F6 key. A lot of unnecessary clicking. How's everyone doing tonight? Playing a little bit of Affinity here in Modern. Let's see, what's this hand do? So this hand can't cast 2 of our spells, and this hand's even worse. Mulligan to 5. Sure, guess we're keeping this one. It's not particularly great. I think we're in the market for another land here. Darkslick Shores pass. So this is either ad nauseum or guess we'll find out if our opponent has like a nope, mono blue living end ish. And this hand is not well set up for this matchup, that's for sure. Alright, so our opponent have something dumb like a remand here. Alright, now it just depends on what our opponent draws, pretty much. This is the living end as foretold. It's essentially a mono blue deck, but our opponent is keeping up their choice of Field of Ruin here. Unfortunately, we drew our mountain, so is our opponent just going to Field of Ruin this turn? Pass to our opponent. Or they might just cycle a couple of creatures. Sure. Nope. So we're probably bringing in Cage and... may as well just pass. I've got nothing... no responses, no priorities, any of that kind of nonsense. Fire a Blink Moth here. At least the nice thing about this deck is it doesn't have like instant speed, living end to like for the complete total utter blowout, but still got things like Cryptic Command to buy the time. If they ever find As Foretold, it's kind of probably automatic game over. Field of Ruin. Alright, so fire up this. See if our opponent has Cryptic Command. Looks like they do not. They're going to activate Field of Ruin here. Sure. Fail to find. Alright, pass. Alright, so now our opponent, if they don't have anything here, is just dead. Go for the lethal here. While your Cryptic Command mana is down. Alright, well, somehow we got there in game one. I'm sure their deck has some sort of fail rate. So Cage makes sense. Question is, how much, how much other interaction we want. These are the cards we're probably interested in. Welding Jar isn't great in this matchup, I don't believe, and Steel Overseer might be a little slow. Alright, so 16 cards, need to bring one back in. Guess we'll bring another Steel Overseer in. Our card. Oh, I boarded out the Welding Jar. Alright. I was like, why are the numbers a little bit off here? Does feel like this should be a bad-ish matchup. Especially when we keep getting hands like this. If we had like... we had one land, this hand would be fine, or even... no, Mox Opal wouldn't be keepable. Alright, I mean, this hand isn't fantastic. What does Ornithopter do for this hand? I don't think that's a card we're interested in here. Get Cage down. See if they have something like Ceremonious Rejection. Nope. Of course, they could still have Cryptic Command to get rid of this later. Alright, Mox Opal's not a horrible draw here. Go ahead and lead on Thoughtseize. Triple as Foretold, Ceremonious Rejection. There's a hand. Some hand our opponent's got. Of course, they do have Field of Ruin, so that does make our Ink Moth plan a little bit worse. Alright, yep, there's As Foretold. Did you draw something like Living In? Appears you did not. Alright, so do this, play out that. Activate this. Use this to activate that. Ancestral, that's a dangerous one. Okay. Second Field of Ruin. So, alright, another Steel Overseer here. So, can I do everything in one turn? Fire these up, play this. Presume they're going to Field of Ruin us, just because it's the play that makes the most sense that they've got going on here. Well, that's cute, but still puts them in a lot of trouble. I actually think the other playline might have been better. The Field of Ruin playline. Sure. Okay. Alright, so we're gonna fire up... It actually put us in a rather interesting spot here. So fire this up, move to combat. So they'll get a basic land, so they could activate their other Field of Ruin here. I don't think I'm going to get them to bite on any other thing, so they're just going to go ahead and double Field of Ruin us. Guess that Nimble Instructionist did do its job. At this point, we're not beating Cryptic Command into Living End anyway, so may as well just fire everything up, and if they got it, they got it. Hercules recall at end of turn. Alright, so... guess I get rid of one of the Steel Overseers. And I'm presuming we're just dead here. Alright, so they're looking for... did they just whiff? Alright. Alright, so play this out. Play this out. Play this out. Play this out. It's probably gonna get countered. Nope. Alright. Pass to our opponent. Probably should have played out Steel Overseer rather than Signal Pest here. Does feel like a game we're going to lose. Sure. They find... alright, Dismember, sure. Sunken Ruins, another As Foretold. Dismembering my Signal Pest here. Thoughtseize, huh? I mean, they can pretty much cast anything in their deck at this point, so like Cryptic Bounce, a lot of different things this could do here. Okay. Actually, just let manually counter it. I was gonna say, good chance whatever their last card in their hand is just a blank anyway, so. Alright, living in, sure. Right, Grafdigger's Cage doesn't stop living end. And so we need to board these cages out. I'm a moron. I forget about the wording of living end in particular. Does not stop living end. So these cages can go right back out. We get some of these Gal Blasts back in. Spell Pierce. Pierce might be a little too slow if we're gonna end up playing a longer game. Not slow, but just can be played around too much. So the best hand against living in typically is Ravager. So, yes, I'd like to play first. Once again, not a whole lot going on with this hand. This hand's pretty decent. Master of Ethereum. Yeah, I think that's a card we're in the market for. Play this out, play this out. Play this out. Play this out. Turn 2 Overseer, or turn 1 Overseer, go! If you play the land this turn, add black to your mana pool instead. Alright. So can try for this one. This is probably going to meet a I'm honestly surprised it didn't. Just a cycle affected in a turn here? Sure. At this point, if our opponent has a counterspell, they have a counterspell. If they have Hercule's Recall, they have Hercule's Recall. Sure, I'd rather it be Mana Leak than Hercule's Recall here. Nope. So our opponent have the nuts here. Could very well have as foretold in a living end. Yep. Might have Hercule's recall. And game. Alright, turns out having a pretty good busted affinity start's a good way to roll. We'll be back here in 1 minute. Alright, we're back here for match number 3 with a fairly basic version of Living End. Not Living End. Living End's what we just played against. So far we've played against Mono Red Burn and Blue Black Living as Foretold Living End. Not really much you can take away from it. That game 3 was kind of the affinity, not quite nut draw, but pretty close to it. Like a turn 4 kill through a little bit of disruption, like a counterspell on a blocker. I mean, those are the matchups that affinity tends to do pretty well against. I mean, our opponent wasn't horribly set up for us. I mean, they have Living End, which is a horrible card for us if they're able to hit as Foretold Living End and Hercule's Recall. So, and that's even despite me screwing up and boarding in Grafdigger's Cage against a Living End deck. Alright, so what does this hand do? I think we keep it. So, This. 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 And we're one artifact away from being able to turn that on. We're up against Stanley Steamers. Alright. So this is likely some style of Death Shadow or Traverse deck, just from the opening, which means we're going to want to lead on Ravager. Master of Ethereum's decent, but most of their removal spells will still be able to tag it. Either Fatal Push or the like. Presuming we don't get like Thought Seized or something here. These are the kind of matchups that are fairly challenging for Affinity. Opponent draws their card. Alright, so what's the best mana efficient play? Play 1. Give me access to 3. Play out Signal Pest here. And pass. It's kind of an awkward way our particular hand lined up. We had a lot of mana. Maybe this wasn't actually a keep. Specifically because of all these Springleaf Drums. Opponent's still debating on cracking their fetch. We really didn't give them a good target to Fatal Push. I mean, Signal Pest is fine, but it's not like one of the high priority targets in the matchup. Alright, looks like they are Death Shadow. Though they could very easily have, yeah, Fatal Push here. On Signal Pest. Not a huge surprise. Yep, so they'll probably take Ravager here, leave us with Master. Death Shadow doing Death Shadow things. Presume you take Ravager. Master's a lot easier to deal with overall. And I take Master. Interesting. Okay. Galv Blast, sure. See if they respond with a removal spell here. I guess Ravager isn't exactly threatening the largest clock in the world, so... Thought Scour, sure. Is this Faviano's... I don't think this is Faviano's Sultai list. Though it certainly could be. The only card in hand they don't know about is the Galv Blast, which, as slow as our current clock is, not sure it particularly matters. No, street rat definitely indicates they're... Alright. So, no delve threat, no... Guess this could be like Snapcast or Fatal Push or something. Yep, there's a Snapcaster. Waiting to Fatal Push. Perhaps I should not have attacked with the Ravager just in case this was their line. Fatal Push the Volt Scourge. Yep. Yeah, I should have guessed that was their line with the fact they passed with that much mana without doing anything. Traverse for something. Shadow. Oh, how cute. It's a baby shadow. Yeah, another Springleaf Drum, because I have nothing better to do with my time. Pass to our opponent. See if they have something like Thought Scour or Opt at the end turn. They do not. The heck is going on with our hand over there? Hostage Taker. Sure. Still think Hostage Taker seems very, very ambitious in this style of deck. Okay. Get a Gal Blast. Here comes Ink Moth. Pass. Going to 6 here. I think I'm currently winning this race, but doesn't feel good, that's for sure. Feels like our opponent's like removal spell in hand is like Abrupt Decay. Okay, sure. So you had a Fatal Push, the Snap Fatal Push. What the heck was that? Oh, Dismember. Okay. Opponent's got an interesting little deck here. We obviously don't have a whole lot going on. What are we bringing in this matchup? Dispatch, Bitter Blossom, Etch Champions, probably. One mana away from being able to cast that card. Snapcaster, Traverse, sure. There's a decent chance their last card's like 7, 8, 9, 10. Hopefully they'll go to like 3 here. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't even know that we have an out here. If we'd have been able to get that Etch Champion down, that cranial plating would have been an out. Alright, so we're up against Abzan, Traverse. So what is their deck? It's like 4... I don't even know what threats they could possibly be running. They've obviously have Death Shadow, Tarmogoyf. Want the Bitter Blossoms, we want the Etch Champions, we want the Dispatch. Cards are we not interested in? These Steel Overseers seem pretty terrible in the face of their removal. And is there some consideration to get these Masters of Ethereum out of here? Just because they're also pretty terrible against removal, and then bring in, what, like 1 Cage, 1 Gear for Ether Grid? Try it like this. Not seen Sultai Shadow in a... Well, what does this hand do? 1, 2... I mean, we'll keep it, but His hand isn't great. This really only shuts down their Snapcaster Mage, which obviously Snapcaster Mage was a problem that game, but I don't think it was our only issue. Okay, targeting themselves. So, need to hit either a third land or some type of Dorko to get this Etch Champion down. Alright, 2 straight race cycled, sure. Ravager's not a horrible draw, but I think this turn we're just going to develop our Springleaf Drum nonsense. That way if they do have Ceremonious Rejection, they're not getting any value this turn. Looks like they might have had either Fatal Push or Ceremonious Rejection. Yep, that's all we got going on. Yeah. Well, that's unfortunate. Probably gotta take as champion here. Ravager is kind of whatever on this board. This is either getting immediately... Yep, there's the Ceremonious Rejection we basically 1000% thought they had. Fatal Push to boot. Tarmogoyf or Death Shadow. Yep, 4/5 Tarmogoyf. See if they have another Ceremonious Rejection. Alright, well, if we draw a creature that we can actually defend, this Cranial Plating will be decent. Trinket Mage, dear lord. They got Engineered Explosives here. Pithing Needle. Sure. All kinds of random toys in our opponent's deck. With Blink Moth here. These are the kind of matchups that are just historically fairly bad for Affinity. Removal heavy, and then admittedly the hand I kept there game 2 was just kind of and the fact that our opponent had Ceremonious Rejection. They were very obviously holding up the whole time. Traverse. Go get Death Shadow. Another Trinket Mage. Alright. See what our opponent shows us from this. Engineered explosives. So that could make things interesting for our opponent. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Activating Blink Moth. Yeah, if you've got Fatal Push, this game is like 1,000% over, but and we're just dead on board. Yep. Alright. So, should have put it on the Mem Knight there. But I suspect our opponent probably had Fatal Push if they were making that play. That was an interesting Sultai Traverse Death Shadow Trinket Mage brew. So what could you go get with something like that? Pithing Needle, Engineered Explosives, suppose there's some amount of utility with a trick like that. Alright, not sure. Alright. So what does this hand do? Turn one. I guess we keep it, but this hand's a little risky. Let's mulligan to 5. Let's grab a card at the top. Alright, so let's lead on. Alright. Blue-white control. on Steel Overseer here and pass. Alright, Gal Blast isn't a horrible card here. Opponent concedes. Interesting. Not sure why you'd concede so quickly. I guess they didn't have Path there or something, would be my only guess. But you do have like one more draw step to hit it, so why would you... Whatever. I learned not to ask after a while why players make decisions they do. So we want the Spell Pierces and the Thought Seizes. Get a couple of these Steel Overseers out of here. Welding Jar's fine, but not great. Get one of the Gal Blasts out of here. Gal Blast for a Bitter Blossom. Play a little bit longer game. They're obviously bringing in Stony Silence. Any other like disenchant effects they have. What does this hand do? So yeah, we keep this hand, obviously. I mean, obviously, if they're keeping like turn 1 Stony Silence, we're pretty well boned here. But anything other than Stony Silence, this hand's pretty decent against. Lead on that. Play out Ravager. Am I burning this other Mox Opal this turn to get another creature down? Play this out to play out Signal Pest, I guess. Pass to our opponent. See if you've got turn 2 Stony Silence. You apparently do not. Alright. Suspect this is just going to meet a ceremonious rejection or spell snare. Is there any reason to play out this Vault Scourge? Alright, so Dead to Wrath. Sure. Stony is a little late to the party. Guess I should have eaten the 2 lands in response. Is that going to change the math here? Spreading Seas, sure. Giving me access to nothing, I guess. Get a mountain here. Past our opponent. And concedes. Alright. So we beat blue-white. That was a bit of a surprise. Don't actually know how that matchup is. I've never played it enough. Seems like there are some affinity draws that could get under it, and there are some draws like interaction into wrath that affinity has trouble beating. I don't know. Anyone in chat played enough of the affinity versus blue-white matchup to know how it actually goes? I mean, obviously I kind of screwed up there with the not activating Ravager to get 2 more tokens on it, and that might have ended up being relevant. Final match with Affinity. I guess I'd like to play first. So this hand is like... Sounds like 1 mana source away from just being absolutely nut busted. So, am I supposed to risk keeping this hand? Like, if this was a land, or... I don't think I can. Too many hands where that hand just does nothing. Alright, so that... This... That... Pass. Not quite as explosive as a hand. Alright. Wow, that was like Flooded Strand immediately to... Alright. So, second blue-white control deck? Maybe? Top. Alright, Citadel activates this. So we get to go steal Overseer. So Darksteel Citadel was probably among our better draws there. But still, like, 1 path blows this hand up pretty easily. Yep, opponent gets to path our dude. We have nothing to go fetch. I don't know how many times we've ended up with this stupid, 1, 2... How many times we've ended up with this stupid, mountain in our hand whenever our opponent paths us. It's actually kind of getting annoying. I guess path was one reason to lead on... Our opponent knows what they've got to beat. One Supreme Verdict pretty well takes care of things here. So the one way our opponent kind of gets us here is something along the lines of Snapcaster Path Exile. Now they might just untap and Wrath us here. Or they're just stuck on lands, not really sure what all is going on in their hand. Another Master of Ethereum. You're just supposed to play out Master here, right? My opponent has Snap Path, they have Snap Path. So we'll draw a Mana Leak out, or anything along those lines. Mana Leak, sure. Alright, Memnite. Very easily, our opponent still has Snap Path here. So in response to this, we're going to go ahead and eat the Memnite. That way their Snapcaster doesn't really have any great blocks. What do you path on end step? Sack Ravager to itself. Holy crap. Level of volume went up. I'm going to put that on mute because that is just too annoying. Yes. I'm just supposed to... Yeah, I think I'm just supposed to do this and... Well, they're tapped out. That way another Gal Blast is also lethal. Sure. Do you have another Path Exile? Need a path to stay alive here, friend. Alright. Nope. It goes to 1. One is not 0. And pass. Wow, we're going for Detention Sphere on that. Yep. I mean, they've stabilized. That's scary. And is this going to get spell snared to boot? Yep. Wow. Opponent stabilized at 1. Still with 5 cards in hand. Just like Geist of Saint Traft, Snapcaster Serum Visions, Wall of Omens. Sure. Looks like our opponent may have stabilized at 1. Ornithopter. Best our opponent here. Guess we play it out, but it does seem like this is just going to get hit by a cryptic command, or they just have Wrath, whichever the case may be. This Revelation feels like a Revelation. Opponent's at 4. Field of Ruin, sure. Feels like a Wrath. Yep. Gal Blast 1 time, dealer. Arcbound Ravager. Search for Azcanta. Flips with another search for Azcanta. That's another Supreme Verdict. Getting at the trials.
Yeah, I think that's enough for this game. Games like this is why I think, suspect this is a bad matchup for Affinity. Alright, so last game, got the Overseers out of here. Need some amount of them. I think we want a card like Bitter Blossom. We want Spell Pierces and Thought Seizes. Steel Overseers are just kind of garbage. And then, is it the Cut Welding Jar? No, we brought in our other S champions, I think. And what is the other cut? Guess Spell Pierce isn't all that great against them. Alright, like this. We have some hedge against something like Stony Silence, but not like all in on it. Guess I'd like to play first. Alright, so we can go turn 1, turn 2. Yeah, keeping this hand. So they scry a card at the top. May as well play out the Opal. Actually, that's turned on this turn, isn't it? Since they scrubbed to the top, I think I'm going to go ahead and hold off on Thought Seizing, although that does delay us from playing S Champion for a turn. Alright, so do this. Get with Vault Scourge. Play out Ornithopter. Go ahead and cast Thoughtseize. I'm gonna path my Vault Scourge in response. Interesting. Not exactly a card that I would consider high priority target for Thoughtseize. Alright, path and alright, Detention Sphere and Path Exile. So this is the one we just controlled. Activate this Ink Moth Nexus. Is that one of our opponent's draw steps? Yeah, it was. Alright, so See what they've got here. They're playing out the detention sphere. Yep, getting a timely reinforcements. Sure. So now we know there are 2 draw steps. Ornithopter. Slow clock. We still know our opponent's last couple of draw steps, so Field of Runes gonna make that a little more difficult. Blink Moth. Alright, sure. It's up to 5 poison. Search for his Kanta. Something like cranial plating or something along those lines would be nice. Our opponent has Snapcaster Mage here. We're going to be pretty sad. Because we're pretty much all in on this infect plan. Maybe I should start attacking with the it's champion. So our opponent's got 2. We know one of their cards in hand is alright, so whatever it was, they chose to keep it on top. Gideon of the Trials. Alright, that's mildly annoying. Especially when we keep flooding out here. So, fire up this Blink Moth. Get into Skidsian here. Oh, their last card in hand is Detention Sphere. Put Revelation into the yard. Interesting. Spreading Seas, that was an unfortunate find. Yeah, the more I play, the longer these games go, the more I just feel that this is just a bad matchup. I mean, I'm sure Affinity can win, but why aren't they attacking with their knuckleheads? Alright, another Ink Moth isn't horrible here. Go ahead and finish off that Gideon. Opponent's going to get a couple looks at some more cards. Pass them. Activate search for his Kanto. Kanto, the Sunken Ruin. Smells like a supreme verdict. Yep, it feels like we're too far behind this game. Puts no cards. Alright. It's gotta be a pretty big miss. It's gotta be like a bunch of lands and a Snapcaster Mage, maybe? Obviously, cranial plating is like one of our better draws. They keep finding spreading seas, which is getting extremely annoying. That's certainly a card. And we know they have Detention Sphere, so even jumping through all these hoops, we're still... Yep. I think at this point I'm just going to go ahead and skip it up. No sense beating my head against a wall. When we know our opponent's got an active search for his Kanto, most of our lands are on lockdown, and they're too high of a life because I wasn't attacking with Etch Champion through all that time. So takeaways from this league. The attrition matchups still are not great for Affinity. We did get lucky against the one blue-white deck. Either they just flooded out horribly or didn't draw the right interaction in the early game. We were able to run them out of the game. And then against that Sultai Shadow list, we got some awkward hands and they were able to pick apart our threats. So that's pretty much how you have to beat Affinity if you don't have like the Stone Cold lockdown hate cards like Stony Silence. Beyond that, I mean, we beat Mono Red Burn, we beat Blue Black as Foretold, Living End, and then we beat Blue White. So 3-2 overall, not bad. But I mean, we saw both the good and bad of Affinity. We saw the removal heavy decks just be able to pick us apart and stay alive long enough to survive early storm if we didn't have like the absolute perfect early draw. And then we were able to beat like the slow clunky Living End deck. We were able to outlast Burn a little bit, and then blue-white matchup went both ways. So saw how the matchup can be positive. We were able to run them over, and then negative if they're able to hit their interaction cards. So 3-2 overall, not bad, but not great. Like I said, Affinity is one of those decks that depends on the hate cards and depends on the number of attrition matchups. Like when regular Tron, Eldrazi Tron, and even to a certain extent, although it's not a fantastic matchup, Titan Shift is on the uptick. Affinity is usually at its best. When decks like Storm or decks like Black Green X, Mid-Range Rock, or Blue-White, or Just Got Control are the norm, the deck can win those matchups, but it's a lot worse. So, I mean, as far as the series overall, I mean, Affinity's up there with like Humans and Burn in terms of the aggro decks we'll consider. Probably going to play with it a little bit more before if I determine I'm good enough with it to continually play it all the time. So it's really a toss-up between this and Humans for the second place. I mean, obviously I've already said I'm kind of a little bit slanted towards Burn because I've had such success with it paper and online. So we'll see what happens, but for now I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Got a few things to take care of. We might be back streaming here a little bit later. Thanks for hanging out. If you like what you're seeing on the channel, feel free to hit that follow button. If you really like and want to support us, feel free to subscribe. And please check out our YouTube channel. We got a bunch of modern content especially, and then we have some standard content, so feel free to check that out. Links below the stream. And thanks for hanging out with me this evening. Hope to catch y'all later. Bye for now.